Last question in the back.
Really good.
What?
So Elaine Wolfenson, given all the knowledge we now have on early child development as the single most important investment to any education, it boggles the mind that we have spent so many years not focusing on early child development. And I think I just have to add on charter schools that the good charter schools are wonderful and the good public schools are wonderful, but not all charter schools, like not all public schools are wonderful. I think one simply has to remind oneself that what we really care about is quality public schools in this country. And at least from everything I've studied, early child development is the best way to achieve that.
Can I just respond very quickly before we get to
Sure.
the early childhood development issues, which other panelists know a lot more than I do? One thing that bothers me in the debate is people say there are charter schools and then there are public schools. Charter schools are public schools. They are not private schools. And it frustrates me to hear routinely the distinction. There are charter schools, charter public schools, and then there are traditional public schools. And that seems to me to be a legitimate distinction. And obviously there are some very poorly performing charter schools in all parts of the country, but that hardly discredits the astonishing success of the highly effective charter schools, about the top 1/5 of charter schools, which have off the charts successes and can be leveraged and expanded so that they serve more kids. So sorry about that pet peeve, but I wanted to get that out.
Pedro, did you want to?
Sure. So on early childhood education, you're absolutely right that when you look at these international comparisons that our country's falling further and further behind on, one of the things that sets us apart from all the other countries that are outperforming us is universal access to early childhood education. And we've known this for years, that the learning that occurs during infancy lays the foundation for learning that will occur throughout life. And we still treat it as an entitlement. We still treat it as an extra. We still regard it in some places as babysitting. We don't appreciate the intellectual foundation and the developmental foundation it's setting for children. So I think it's a key political and policy issue that we've got to take on at some point. I would just also add on the charter school debate. I authorize charter schools. I'm a SUNY trustee, so I'm very much in this. I support charter schools. But let's be clear. Christina takes all comers. Charter schools don't. And many of the charter schools I'm visiting have found a way to take very few special needs and English language learners. So let's just be clear, we're not comparing apples and apples.
So I would be willing today, Pedro, because you and I are the two authorizers. I would be willing today to say to you that if SUNY, as an authorizer, would be willing to say that we are not going to grant a charter to a school that doesn't have a proportionate number of English language learners and special education students as represented in the entire community, they will not be given their final charter. I would commit to you today that the other authorizer, which is the New York State Board of Regents, would agree to do the same. So the problem is that we both talk out of both sides of our mouths because we want great charter schools. We want kids to have a choice. And yet we know what the challenges are. So we're not perfect.
By the way, there are a number of charter models that would be fine with that. And when I've called and asked them the question, they say we have the proportion of non-English speakers and special ed that comparable schools do.
I'll take you on a tour. We'll see.
There are a few. Not as many as we'd like.
So